Todd,
Ali Hassan, what's up, buddy?
so fucking sorry, man. I'm
Not
so
at all.
sorry. All the back and forth, because it was supposed to be in Victoria, I guess, like, and then the final adjustment we made to Wednesday night is the one I didn't mark down on my calendar. I'm really, really
All,
sorry, man.
all good. No, I shot him a note. I was like, hey, just so you know, I'm on the Zoom. I've got some time. So all good, man.
Okay,
Yeah, no, all
okay,
good.
bud.
So you're
I was stranded in Victoria, but got a chance to listen to some of your episodes. I listened to the Jerry D one. It was from a while back, but
well, as a
got to
while
listen
ago,
to a
yeah.
couple of them. Yeah, yeah, but it
Yeah.
was good. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Oh, right on, right on. Well,
Yeah,
thank you, man, for
you're
for taking some
clearly
time
a.
to join us here. Of
Oh
course,
yeah,
you're from Canada. You're well aware of Vancouver. Normally, I do the spiel of, hey, have you ever been here before? And of course, you've been here. You're
yeah.
coming back to play. You're doing your Does This Taste Funny tour, and it's rolling through at the Anvil Theater in New West.
That's right. Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah. It
So, and
should be a good time based on
yeah,
everything I hear.
that's what I'm hearing as well. Yes. So it's April 19th, and so this show is it based on you wanting to be a chef or
No,
and have a
well,
TV show, or like
I,
how does that work? Like it's there's something to this show.
there is something to this show. I was a chef for many years. I was a chef and a caterer and a cooking instructor, and prior to that, I was sort of a wannabe food show host, and I actually started doing stand-up comedy because I was like, well, you can't really practice on television,
Mm,
but I could practice at these open mics and I could build my confidence in front of a, quote unquote studio audience. I could write some jokes about food and just build my confidence and develop a persona in general. And I stepped on stage and I fell in love with stand up immediately. So then I had like two goals, but originally comedy was a means to an end. This was like, this is going to help me get on television as
mm.
a chef or a food television host.
Interesting. See,
Yeah.
I feel the exact same way. Like I've been doing broadcasting since the mid '90s. Radio stuff for 20 years, podcasting now for about almost 10. But if it wasn't that, it was definitely like just I love working with food. I
Mm.
love just cooking and the world that you get and kind of get lost in that world. Hey,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the greatest challenge for me, you have kids, Todd?
yeah, I've got two boys,
Two
12.
boys. Yeah, I read about that. You have that on your website when in your
That's right.
bio, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you went through this. There's like this dilemma of like, I want to teach these kids to be independent. I want to teach them life skills, swimming, self-defense, cooking. I mean, I rank cooking right up there.
Sure.
And then they come into the kitchen to help me. And I'm just like, man, get the hell out of here. Because it's like my meditative space. I operate with a certain level of precision and comfort in the kitchen after so many years. And I really have to squash that desire. You know that I don't know if you remember that character. I think Chris Kattan was on SNL. He was the Nick, the IT guy, and somebody he would come in and people would go, "Oh, hey Nick, listen, yeah, there's something flashing on my screen," and I tried to, and he'd be like, "Move." That was his line. He would just go, "Move." I
Yeah.
feel like that sometimes in the kitchen. Like, is this garlic? Did I chop this properly, Papa? I feel like I'm like, "Move, get out of here." You think
Ah,
20
yeah, I know,
minutes
right?
to chop a
It
clove?
it just goes away. Just like, come on. So
God.
what are you making then to impress when friends come over?
I mean, we do any variety of things. I struggle very much to order out. And so last weekend, I was actually stuck in Victoria while we had a snowstorm in Toronto.
Hmm.
So I had to take the red eye, arrive in Toronto on Sunday morning by about 9, napped for a bunch of the day. And in the end, we had to order this West Indian Chinese. It was amazing, but it pained me to have to order out. So what we did is something we've been doing a lot more, which is we made a board, like a cheese board, like three
Okay.
types of cheeses, pate, grapes, figs, nuts. And it's like at least at least I put my hands on something. But lately, and my boy who's 7 and turned 8, he was like, "Can we make a cheese board for my birthday?" And I'm like, "Well, this is interesting." Used to be a trip to McDonald's when I was a kid.
I know, right?
You
Boy,
drink this miscellaneous liquid, you have a burger, and
the
you're
times have
happy.
changed. Yeah,
Times have really changed.
yeah, totally. So okay, so what to expect then at the show?
Well, the show is like, I start my introduction to food. It's not a great origin story because it doesn't paint me in a great light, but I insulted my mother's sandwiches when I was in the 8th grade.
Right.
She made God bless her. I mean, worked so many hours, and the night before my school, her work, she'd make tomato and cheese sandwiches, and they were the soggiest. I mean, you can imagine the night before what a tomato does by the next day, And so they would become, just like a soggy mess. And meanwhile, I have buddies who I'm going to school with who, their mothers don't work, and it looks like their full-time job is making lunch for their children.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting like increasingly frustrated, like, is the days of Tupperware. These kids are opening up just pop, 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 chips, pickles, blueberry, like all kinds of things. I've just got this one foil wrapped sandwich. I talk about my buddy Zach, foil wrapped. I talk about my buddy Zach, who he would have like stuff that I didn't even know what it was. I would be like, "What is that? What is this pink meat you have?" And he'd be like, "Oh, it's corned beef." And I'd be like, "What in the hell is corned beef? Is that corn and beef together like a burger and a patty?" He'd be like, no, it's corned beef. I was like, corned? You can corn something? Corning is a verb? I was like, oh my God, what is this world of sandwiches I don't know anything about? So I go home and I tell my mom, I go, "Mom, your sandwiches taste like shit." And you weren't allowed to swear around my mother. I've never heard her swear. She went like very calm, and she was like, "Okay, you can make your own sandwiches from now on." And as I say, that woman could hold a grudge. So that was it. I mean, I'm grade 8, and I'm like, now I'm panicking. I'm like, oh, I was hoping that would be taken like feedback, but clearly I was a jerk. And my mother was like, "You're not getting any sandwiches from me then." So now I'm scrambling in the morning, okay, peanut butter, okay, omelet sandwich, okay, a herb and cheese omelet like it just grew into, by the 10th grade, I've got like black olive and herb cheese omelet sandwiches, and it's like, I turned into something in my.
You can thank your mom then, for
I can thank my mom. I can absolutely thank her for that. And my nickname was Sandwiches because I was really sandwich focused. And then my dad has like heart disease, angina early on, and so it's like low salt, low oil, low flavor in general. And so now I'm sort of like, chasing the dragon, to use a heroin term. I want that flavor from the old days, from yesteryear. My food doesn't taste as good anymore. And so that was just me, always constantly trying to make good food. And it just continued. And I'm not a particularly smart guy. Like I can come off as smart, but I always, I lost every chess game I ever played, unless I'm playing a child. There's no hope. I've never been able to do even one side of a Rubik's Cube. I have these insecurities about myself compared to the people I was hanging out with, and I could lack understanding of anything too technical. And so I always thought I'd be working with my hands. I'd be doing some blue collar work or working with my hands. A nightmare to my academic father, of course, but I was like, I think these are my limitations, man. And so, yeah, food just felt right from so many different perspectives. I had this creative juices. I had the desire to work with my hands. I had a great palate. I had the experience since I was 13. And so all of that, is detailed in comedic storytelling in this show. And then also now I'm a dad, I'm a father of 4. I've got kids who have no appreciation of the food I make for them.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm coming from the trauma of tomato sandwiches. So I'm making my kids like 7-layer vegetable lasagna and, you know, like a quinoa and currant salad with dill. And they're like, can we just have a muffin? I'm like, no, no, this is what my trauma looks like. You go and eat your 4-course meal.
Nice.
And then, and of course, you know, full circle, I'm at risk for the same heart disease and gout and all the rest of it that my father was at risk of.
Mm,
So it's let's just say it's an incredibly relatable
yeah,
show
yeah,
because everybody is either running from some kind of disease, you know,
yeah.
food related illnesses.
Ain't getting old fun.
Nah, no kidding. No
Right.
kidding. And so it's a little bit about like um you know, pulling the reins a bit and being like, what can I afford to give up? Maybe I don't
Yeah,
need that
sure.
many beers. Maybe I don't need chicken wings that regularly, you know?
Mhm.
And you know, talk about like in our childhood, you know, the relatability is I love it what food can provide because my enemy as a child was the turnip. It would show up unannounced, pretending to be a potato, you know, and I really like I hated the turnip so much. And while people may not share that, people go, oh yeah, mine was eggplant, mine was mushrooms or whatever, you know,
That's
and
one of
food
them, sure.
has,
Yeah,
yeah, food has that sort of general relatability. I talk about how, you know, we all consider ourselves so tolerant and we're like we were accepting of many people and this and that, and then you watch a friend put like ketchup on their scrambled eggs and you're like, okay, this friendship is over. Like food
you're
can
done,
be
bud.
so, and yeah,
Yeah,
and it could be ketchup on scrambled eggs or it could be whatever the thing is, you know, eating
yeah,
chicken wings with a fork and knife. You're like, I can't spend time with you. I don't know how to be your friend anymore. But food is so great at illustrating like how you know how much we're not what we might think we are, you know,
yeah.
especially food snobbery and all that. So
Well, that's cool. Like with those worlds colliding too, right? Like you love comedy, you love, of course, love food. Like
yeah,
how
yeah.
much of your life is just that, like just surveillance and like thinking about things, and like how hard is that to turn off?
I don't know if it's a turn off, turn on thing, to be honest, Todd. I think it's just like this is how your mind works in a way, right? You know, I always used to hear that comedians kind of look at things from a different angle than other people. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Do they? Do we? And you realize over the years, like, oh, I guess I do. I guess I do take a different look at the world from most people. I see things in a way most people don't, and that's I think the gift that comedians have. Right? They have a different perspective, or you know, I don't know how much you know Doug Stanhope, one of the early comedians I used to listen to. I was like, wow, this guy takes a view that is so out there, and then boom, 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 argument, 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 and by the time he's done with all his arguments in favor of something, you go, man, I think I agree with one of the most ridiculous point. It was obscene 5 minutes ago. Now I think he's got me, you know. So some people can convince you on stage, other people just present it to you and give you a laugh. And you know, we've all seen comedians who say something a certain way and then you're like, man, I can't see the world the same way anymore. Ever since, you know, Bill Burr told that joke about,
Right.
you know, in the way people or whatever it is. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know if it's a turn on, turn off. I mean, sometimes definitely you do have like, okay, this is funny. I just don't know why. I don't know why. And then you just kind of like, you know, sculpt it and shape it and mold it. And sometimes it'll take a couple of years. You're like, hey, I'm putting this on the shelf, but this is not gone forever.
Mm,
I'm coming back to this somehow. And I've had a few of
interesting.
those
For like years, literally years.
years, literally years. I'm like, I don't know what to do. But you know what? Speaking of radio, you know, there's this idea that some people believe in comedy that nothing is ever wasted. Nothing is ever wasted. The reason I truly believe that is because I used to do campus radio in when I was 18, 19. God knows why I was attracted to it, but I wanted to. I was at this place called Champlain College in St. Lambert, Quebec. And I did I did a semester of a radio DJ. Then I moved to a different college, Dawson College. Now it's a bigger campus. And I was like, can I have a half an hour, 1 hour show every week? Sure. You don't even know who you're performing. You have no clue like who's listening to this and where,
Yeah.
but you're just like, anyway, hope everyone's having a good afternoon. Here is Slayer with South of Heaven. And you're like, does anybody care about what I'm saying? I don't know. Once in a while, somebody would pop their head into the radio station and go, is that you who just played Run DMC and then Slayer? I'm like, yeah, you're weird, man. This is
Like,
cool.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then for years, I didn't think of radio. I didn't do anything on radio. I didn't even think of like my mic technique and the radio thing. And then all of a sudden I'm at CBC and it dawns on me that I'm like, oh my God, almost 20 years ago, I used to sit in booths like this with the headphones on. And I was probably building a comfort with the mic that a lot of people don't have. And so I just believe in like nothing is wasted. Even if you do something, pardon me, even if you do something just to realize that you cannot physically bring yourself to ever do that thing again, I think it's still not a waste. So that's one of the great things about comedy. You can put it away, and I'm comfortable thinking in myself, maybe soon, maybe long term, who knows? But I'll get back to that someday. And it just happened a few weeks ago. I was like, that's how I talk about this. I link it to this other joke I've been thinking about. Because sometimes you're like, something really needs a segue. It's not just a
yeah.
so speaking of, right, exactly. Walking down the street and
got to be
just
something.
thinking about
Something's
this.
got to link it.
Something's got to link it sometimes, and so you just don't have the link, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got it. I got the link.
And so going back to like when you were just a kid, and of course not a comic at that point, like who were some of the guys that were blowing your mind?
Yeah, I've been asked that a lot, and Eddie Murphy comes to mind very quickly, but the truth is, I really loved, my dad would watch Carson, and sometimes he'd let me stay up and watch it, but like it wasn't ideal.
Yeah.
But he would let me watch it. But I remember this is like late 70s, early 80s. I remember like Gary Shandling, Richard Belzer, Joan Rivers, like these characters, these names meant nothing to me. And then later, 5 years later, I see a show, I go, oh, it's the guy. I saw that guy. I was really excited about those late night comics, but to me, they were like the same as like magicians. Like it was as esoteric and as unrealizable a goal as magic. I was like, I don't even know. Like, I couldn't even start to conceive of how they got to that stage. I was just way too young to even think of this as a career or even, think about the money or anything. I'm like 8 to 12 years old. In that period, my favorite thing to do was watch comedians on late night television. I just loved that. And I remember my dad would absolutely no Saturday Night Live. That was out of the question. It was too inappropriate.
How about SCTV?
SCTV was okay. SCTV was okay. I don't know. It had a little bit more of a Canadian like sweetness to it, maybe. But I think, the days of Belushi and Chevy Chase and Bill, maybe it was Saturday Night Live was
Different.
yeah, different and a little bit too vulgar for my, I guess, 8-year-old, 9-year-old mind in my dad's eyes.
And I wonder what it is about like the Canadian sense of humor and like SCTV and Kids in the Hall and Mr. Show, and like when you start to really get into all of the stuff that we've done over the years as a talent pool, I guess, like through John Candy and Jim Carrey and Mike Myers, of course, and Phil Hartman and all those guys. Like, what is it about the Canadian sense of humor, do you think?
Well, a couple of those aren't necessarily Canadian, but they feel very Canadian. I will say, Mr. Show, for example,
Oh,
is
Mr. Show's not Canadian? Oh, I thought it
no,
was.
it was Bob Odenkirk and David Cross, who
Oh,
could
right.
basically pass for Canadians, both of them.
Yeah,
And I
true.
don't Phil Hartman, I don't think was Canadian either. But the point, it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
even know why I'm bringing that up. Your point is
Why are Canadians
the
funny?
obscene amount of talent that we produce out of this country.
Yeah.
And I don't I don't know why we have so much of it, but I know that we have an incredible work ethic. I think, particularly like outside of Quebec, there's no star system. And so to really get recognized, to showcase your talent, you you got to be constantly at work. And when that work ethic travels to the US, and you got to, of course, again, work very hard to get into the US, you've got to have a
Mm,
fair amount of money, over ten to $15,000 just for the lawyer's fees, never mind the actual moving and setting yourself up, and the
mm,
months that you won't be getting work. You have to be ready for that. So it's a costly affair. So you have to be well prepared for it, and yeah, you got to work pretty hard to get to that place too. So I think our work ethic really distinguishes us from a lot of other performers. In general, I think that's what we have. Why are we so talented here? I mean, I think it's not unlike the conditions of many persecuted communities. We're just persecuted by the weather, I guess. We're persecuted by the various um, geography and climate and other sort of goofiness that surrounds us.
mm,
We're
mm.
victims of that, I guess you could say. But yeah, it's pretty phenomenal.
Mhm. You'd mentioned Eddie Murphy. Delirious. Does that get made today, or could that be done today? Like, no, right?
It could get made, but as I always like to say, it's not that you can't say anything these days. You could say a ton. One of your local, Vancouver products is Cliff Nesteroff. Cliff
Mm,
Nesteroff, phenomenal, like encyclopedia of comedy historian, and he talks about like how it's almost comical when people say you can't say anything these days, because Lenny Bruce was carted off to jail numerous times. The cops would come and raid your place of business if it was regarded that you were saying something that went against moral codes. Homophobia was okay, racism was okay, but if you were passing these moral codes, so you could say more than you ever can. Cliff Nesteroff will tell you, a guy who studied comedy history, but there are consequences for what you say. So could Eddie Murphy go and do all that? Sure. And he might even have a little bit of a market for it because of his charm and his delivery and all that. But there would be a variety of communities coming down on him real hard. And not only that, but myself, I'm not necessarily, part of any community that was under attack, or not under attack, but wasn't a subject of any of
yeah,
Eddie Murphy's
the
comedy.
butt end
He
of a
wasn't
joke,
talking about I he
or
wasn't talking about Muslims or Pakistanis or any
mm,
or Quebecois chefs or anything like that, other comedians. Um, but I still have enough respect for my gay buddies and friends of mine that I would probably be like, I'm not sure if that's so funny that there's a hole burning in the back of you because some gay man is staring at you. You know what I mean? It was also
yeah,
from a place of great ignorance. And I think Eddie Murphy himself would look at his stuff and be like, look, man, I was 21. What the hell did I know? Who had I met yet? I didn't know any. So
plus
I
not that it's right of but sign of the times as well. It was very different time then, right? Than
It was a
today.
different time. He was a different person, and we're different people. So
Yeah,
it definitely
I mean,
probably
there's
wouldn't.
there's lots of stuff that couldn't get made today. Like
Absolutely.
there's just lots of stuff.
Absolutely. Stuff that, Norman Lear, regarded as one of the greatest like creators, All in the Family was so incredible. But
Right.
unfortunately, stuff that's even I don't even have to go as far back as All in the Family. I was listening to an interview with Mindy Kaling on NPR, and the interviewer, Terry Gross, says, "Do you think The Office could get made today?" And Mindy goes, "No. The Office was a very specific time. It would never get made." And Terry Gross was disappointed, and she was like, "Why? Why don't you think so?" And Mindy Kaling was like, "Well, I'll just take one joke. I'll take one example. When Michael Scott says, okay, Oscar, would you like to be referred to as something less offensive than Mexican?" Whatever the joke is. It's a joke about how stupid and clueless Michael Scott is, but we don't look at it that way. Now we look at it as, who wrote that joke? Why did they think they can put that joke on television? And, there's also people who are like, how do we get that person fired who wrote that joke? There's also that element sometimes, So yeah, you have to be.
There's I've gone down the rabbit hole of like cancel cultures. Is it a thing? Is it not a thing? Like,
well, it's a great way to phrase it. Is it or isn't it? Because sometimes you're like, it's not really a thing. When the Bill Maher's of the world, what is he on, his fourth show on a major network, and he's talking about cancel culture? You've never really been canceled. One time you had to apologize for something because some advertisers were going to pull advertising from your show. You have not faced cancel culture. What are you even talking about? And all these, Fox News hosts in their 18th year of hosting a show with huge ratings, you don't have to worry about it. So it's kind of comedic to hear some of the people yelling about cancel culture when they have never even come close to being canceled. And sometimes cancel culture is just like, well, hey man, you didn't move with the times. You are not adapting. The world is moving. The world doesn't say that word anymore. The world doesn't do this anymore. The world is trying not to punch down and make people who are already oppressed feel more oppressed. And you refuse to move along. So the consequences are, a network doesn't want to carry your show. A network doesn't want to carry your comedy special. And is that cancel culture? You still got YouTube. You still got venues. You go up, do your thing, create your own audience. And I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it or isn't it? I think that's the best way to phrase it, because it's not that clear. It's not that cancel culture exists. It might, but in most cases, it's not where most of the complaining is coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Ali, of course, sort of.
Yeah.
Run the Burbs. Some good stuff. You're banging out some good quality content for us.
That's nice of you, Todd. Thanks.
So I'm wondering, like, what are you binging then?
Well, I'm pretty pumped about Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
I talked to a friend about this. I have a podcast as well. It's called Doctor versus Comedian.
Okay.
And we had a guest, Dr. Mark Shapiro, who has a podcast called Explore the Space. Do you know what Explore the Space is a reference to?
From Rick and Morty, or no, from Solar Opposites.
You know what? Maybe, but his reference is Christopher Walken in the More Cowbell sketch yells out, "Explore the space" to everybody. It's like
I wonder if that is the spin from the Solar Opposites took. Do you know the show Solar Opposites?
I don't know it. I don't know it at all.
Write it down, because you're gonna love it. Like, it's so funny and like just witty, and it's an animated series. There were aliens crash into Earth, and they try to live amongst us, kind of thing, right? But at the very beginning, he talks about the leader of the aliens talks about the Earth, or whatever the quote was. So interesting. I wonder if they stole that from that.
Maybe.
Of course, like, Christopher Walken thing is so like,
it's like public. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
For the taking. Yeah. But anyway, he has a sub series of his podcast called Med Lasso. From a medical standpoint, they talk about Ted Lasso. He's a huge fan. So one of the guys on the podcast goes, "What are you most excited about for Ted Lasso?" And I said, this is a very, like, it feels like a cop-out, this answer, but I'm not I am never more present and in the moment than when I'm watching that show. I'm not like guessing what's going to happen next. I'm not trying to be like, hey, next episode, how are they going to do this? I've never had a show put me so much in the moment. I just really love every second of that show. So there's no excitement about what's happening next. It's just give it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Let me let it bathe over me, like the sun.
Yeah.
It's such a great show. I really enjoyed that,
Yeah.
and I'm
Real
looking
smart show.
forward to looking. And Succession is coming back. These were my pandemic compadres.
Yeah.
Ozark, Succession, Ted Lasso. These made me feel whole again
What a
during the
crazy time.
pandemic. And another thing that's come back, and I don't know if you caught the show the first go around, was Party Down.
Party down. No.
Remember Party Down? It's a I was a caterer, and I was also getting into the acting and all that. And this is a group of cater waiters as part of a catering company who are
Okay.
all like trying to be actors in LA. And it's like Adam Scott, Jane Lynch, a bunch of like huge names now. Lizzie Kaplan, they're fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Watching that, but oh, and you know what else? I got to give this like some huge credit is Reservation Dogs. And do you know Reservation Dogs, Todd?
Oh,
If you
what's
like
that?
sort of,
Brittany?
if you enjoyed sort of, it's a similar style of comedy.
Okay.
And Reservation Dogs was written by Sterling Harjo. Sterling is a indigenous guy from the U.S. He was part of a sketch troupe called the 1491s. It's pretty. They made quite a name for themselves. And the 1491s, a few of them have gone on to write and create. So he created Reservation Dogs with Taika Waititi, and it's a great show. It's on FX,
Okay.
or on depending on what you how you get FX, but it is an FX show, and it's quite good. I love the pace. It's these four kids on the res, and it's some really day-to-day stuff. It's some absurdist stuff. It's some real stuff, and it's beautiful. And
Mm,
in the last 4 or 5 months, just coming home at least once a week and watching an episode of that has just been, I don't know, wonderful, wonderful.
that's cool.
Yeah.
How about the music side of your life? What did you grow up around?
Man, so there's a huge source of embarrassment around the music side of my life because I was big into music.
Mm,
And I was very sheepish to admit this. And then one day I heard Russell Peters say this proudly. He had no sheepishness. He goes, as far as I'm concerned, music after the year 2000 doesn't even exist.
right.
And I was, because I really liked like Arcade Fire. I loved Metric, Feist. I was getting into bands like this,
Mm,
but I can't seem to like remember names of songs. I barely remember lyrics. TV on the radio. I went to see them on concert, like these amazing bands, but it doesn't stick the
mm,
same way in my mind the way music did until I was like in my mid 20s, maybe even like late 20s. It's just it doesn't. So anytime I want to listen to music, I think in my head, I'm going to listen to some new music. And I always go back to the old music. I go, and when I say old, I don't mean, I'm not talking about the 1950s. I'm just talking about
yeah.
90s and 2000s. But yeah, like I really, I get a kick out of listening to stuff that I was raised on, whether it's like, and it's weird. It's quite eclectic. I loved Iron Maiden. So that's one of the most intelligent, phenomenal bands that I
Oh
was
man,
ever introduced to. Maiden is amazing, but I
great
also
punk rock.
loved Van Halen, and I loved Motley Crue. More of the glam rock. I love that too. And then I also loved like Depeche Mode. There was a lot of stuff in that area. New Order I really liked, and
Well, you were all over the
British
place,
band.
eh?
I was all over the place, and I was also really into rap. I was also really into rap. And it was almost like pretty much everything except country and western.
Mm,
And I don't even know why. Just that was just never around.
yeah.
I was even into some French bands growing into Quebec, and yeah,
Mm,
I loved music. I really did. And now, because of podcasts. I put in the headphones and I'd rather just learn something. I think so many years of not learning anything and just being an idiot. I'm like, no. Let's make up for some lost time. What is Dr. Sanjay Gupta saying about nature? You know,
Yeah,
what is this history of hip hop documentary? Let me put this. I just soak it all up in a way that I never did.
yeah. There's overkill too on all that stuff. Like there's so many good programs and
I know.
series and all that stuff. Like we're
Yeah.
just like we are living in the best time ever, ever.
People have no idea. People
Yeah,
have no idea. Yeah. No,
yeah.
you can't get more access to more stuff than you can right now. It's wild.
Right. Like, especially guys like I don't know how old are you?
I just turned 50.
So I'm turning 50 in December, right? So like
Okay.
the same age pretty much.
Yeah.
But guys like us, we get it because we grew up where it was like, well, go see if Matt's home.
Yeah.
Call him because they're fucking not answering. So I
Yeah.
guess I got to go into his house.
I saw this broken down dad the other day, Todd, like broken. He's got 5 kids. I was like, how's it going? He's like, dude, what the hell happened to going to your buddy's house and just knocking on the door and going to play? Because I saw him at baseball and he's like, what's with
Yeah.
all these organized sports? Everything's organized. You gotta get here, you gotta get. Now he's got
Yeah.
5, so he's dying, right? He's got twins and then a toddler and then two other, a 9, 11-year-old.
Holy
But
man.
he's so sick of organized sports. He's like, but why can't you just grab your bat, go grab a friend, and go to the park? Why do I have to be
Dude,
involved in every goddamn facet of your lives, right?
right.
And I couldn't have agreed with the guy more. I was like, I
Yeah.
know, man. And the only thing I got is my 2 sons have each other. So they're often like, can we go to the park? So I got a little bit of that. But I'm like, man, isn't there a friend you can reach out to and you guys get a little game going or something? I mean, this is a
Like
huge
something,
part of my youth. Yeah,
some road hockey or something
totally. Road hockey was, man, in
all the
Montreal.
time, dude.
We would play, there would be sweatsicles, icicles of sweat from
Yeah.
underneath my toque. We were playing so hard and aggressively, and it was fantastic. I'm so sad that my kids don't have that.
Yeah.
So
Are
sad.
you are
Yeah.
you following Bedard? Where do you think he's going to land?
Oh, I
You
don't
hockey guy
know,
or
man. We watched almost every Team Canada game
yeah,
in the
exciting.
yeah, it was great. It was
It
great to
almost shows like
watch.
okay, like Nova Scotia, maybe they should have their own team, man. Like they
Yeah.
went freaking mental for it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's huge. It's huge. I think it was also the après pandemic sort of like,
Yeah, true. Lots of
we've
that.
been kept away from this for too long. Let's dive all in.
Yeah.
I don't know about Bedard, man. I obviously I had some hopes for the Habs. Well, we had
Whew.
some hopes with Shane Wright also. I mean, I don't know, man. And the Habs are like, can you please just tank this thing? And
Yeah,
then
we're
you
feeling the
hear,
same here in Vancouver. Like, come on, guys,
oh
what the
God,
hell?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what are you doing? Why are you
being
trading away our draft picks? What are you doing?
being a Canucks fan is been a couple of really, really rough decades. I don't remember like Bure. I mean, that Bure was the last time that it was like
Mid
exciting, I
nineties, mid
think.
nineties for
Yeah.
that.
I mean, I don't know. I shouldn't say that. Maybe the Sedin twins were like very exciting
Well,
for you,
Sedins
but
were awesome, dude. They're
they
like
were
they're,
they
they're
were
like
cool and they were great, but you were never making it to playoffs, right? You were never in a position where it was like, this is a contending team. This is a
yeah.
playoff contender.
I mean, with
So,
them, we had a couple years where we were like the President's Cup, the best team in the league, back to back years.
yes,
Nothing
which
with
made
it.
it hurt.
You know,
Yeah.
oh, dude, it's the worst. It's the
uh,
oh man. How about comic books? Did you get into that as a kid?
I did. I
Yeah.
did. I had comic books and cards, baseball cards, hockey cards.
Mm,
My mother would scream at the top of her lungs to get me. And once she threw away like a box of my cards, and it was one of the most devastating things. And it was just, I wasn't listening. I was just like a boy, It's just like, yeah. I'll come for dinner. What am I doing? I'm just looking at Rolly Fingers and Warren Cromartie's faces. Like, what am I doing with my cards? It's so funny. It's one
Wow.
thing to be playing a video game or watching a show that you're engrossed in. I was just engrossed by my cards, just
Yeah.
looking at men in tights. I always say this. I'm like, I was the gayest kid for a non-gay kid. Pictures of David Lee Roth on the wall with spandex so tight you could see that he's a Jewish fella, you know, all these like baseball players. It was all dudes on my wall. And it's like, what a beautiful, innocent time. You know, nobody came in my room and was like, it's kind of a gay vibe in here. Nobody ever said that, but like
Right.
just men in makeup, right?
Yeah.
Men in tights. But that was my youth, yeah. And comic books also, superheroes in tights. A lot of men in tights in
A
my
lot of men in tights. A lot of men in
yeah.
tights. Was it a DC or is it a Marvel world in for you?
I was way more DC, and I only think about that now when my kids like are excited by the Marvel universe. But I loved Batman. I thought Batman was very, very cool. I love the Silver Surfer, Green Lantern. It was like a whole different, you know. I shouldn't say a whole different. It was very similar to a lot of the superheroes we see now. But yeah, I had a lot of comics, and
Yeah,
I
same.
feel like I still have a box somewhere. I
I
don't
think
know where.
I've got a good chunk still checking around, and I like
Yeah,
yeah, we just went kind of going through it. It's like, holy man, like it just brings you back to
sure.
grade 6, grade 7, grade 8, whatever it was, right? It's pretty cool,
Yeah.
man. Not many things do that. Food does, of course, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Food evokes
Is that stuff?
incredible memories.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. Which power would you want to have?
So such a good question. We used to, our cop out, I remember used to be like, I want to have the ability to have a wish anytime I want to wish. And people, no, you can't do that.
Yeah,
You have to have one.
that's not a power.
I angered you also the same way I angered my friends back then. Um, I don't know. It feels like X-ray vision sounds like the creepiest thing ever. I really would like to fly. I would love to fly. I would love to. I mean, I feel that to this day, when you're trapped on the tarmac of an airport for an hour and a half for no good reason, just let me out. I'm going to fly my way out of here. I don't need to be on this crap. I would love, I remember my dreams when I was young was often me like flying over a city and overseeing things.
Lucky, man. I've never had those dreams.
Really?
I've never had a dream where I'm flying. Never.
Oh yeah, yeah. Flying was great. Flying was like escapism and power and speed and like
Yeah.
I'm better than all you people. I don't need to take the subway. I'll be there in seconds. I'm
Totally.
flying.
I've had some people say time travel. I don't know if that's a superpower, but like, fuck, would that be cool, man?
That'd be cool. There's some
Time travel.
comedian I think is a I don't even want to say who I can't even remember, so I won't say, but is a black comedian who has a great joke about time travel
Yeah.
and how like that's the one superpower that no black kid ever wanted.
Right.
Because it's like, I want to travel back in time, and then you you appear in like the 1500s in England, and everyone's like, "Get to work, slave!" It's like, "Oh no, I went too far."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so bad.
Yeah,
So bad, it's good.
yeah,
Uh, Ali, I'm gonna ask you a couple more questions and we'll wrap it up. Okay.
you bet.
Well, I guess this isn't a question. I always generally ask this of my guests only because some people have some pretty incredible stories. Do you have a near death story or like you're holy crap, I could have just died?
Yeah, a few times in the car. A few
Yeah.
times in the car. I there was a time, growing up in Quebec, also the roads and all this kind of stuff. You're a cocky young person, and the amount of times you spun out. And I remember once with a girlfriend, and I used to have a pretty, like, as a Montrealer, everybody has a lead foot, but I had a really heavy foot and I'm driving really fast. I remember just, veering into a lane really quickly and a truck just kind of coming out. There was a truck beside us and I'm like kind of cutting in front of this truck, but somebody was doing the exact same thing from the other side. So I had to turn right back into my lane. And we were on two wheels. We were just on, one side of the car wheels for a bit and bouncing. The car bounced back into place and luckily got back on the road. And then I remember I had to pull over with my girlfriend, and she was just like, she gave me like the best lecture. Like, it was so reasonable. She was like teary-eyed, and she was like, do you understand when I tell you to slow down? I'm not trying to be a bitch. I'm just like, I don't want something to happen to you. I don't want something to happen to me. For what? For what? Just because you had to get somewhere a minute quicker? We don't need to speed. I remember I was just like so floored. And I would say every year I drive a little bit more cautiously. I'm just like, I can't even remember why I needed to go that fast. I don't even have it was just like the thrill of it, maybe, or the cockiness or what. But every year, the kids and
I know what you
whatever, you're
mean.
just like, oh no, I love the work I do. I want to get to work. I don't want to, and I
Yeah,
really hate like paying tickets. And what was like, I don't, there's no reason. There's just no reason for me to speed anymore. I don't even know who that guy was.
I know, right? Like some of the stuff, man. Like you look back over your life, like how did I even live? How am I
Yeah.
still alive? Right? Like we would go. I lived in the Okanagan when I was like in my mid-teens to like into 2021, kind of something like that. But we would drive between Penticton and Summerland, and
I
that's
know
like
it.
maybe a 12-minute drive, 15-minute
Yeah.
drive, something like that. But we would try to make it in under like 10.
Yeah.
So you're going like 240, 260,
Whew.
like
Yeah.
just flying, taking all lanes, like just a stupid little kid, right? Like
Yeah.
it's insane, man. It's really insane.
Well, I know it is a bit of a crapshoot, when you think about like how many people are still alive and shouldn't be.
Yeah.
We used to go, and I didn't trust my body enough to do this, but a couple of my buddies, we would go to kind of like back roads,
Mm.
or there's you don't, but they would car surf. My buddy Zach, my buddy Miles would get on top of the car, and we'd have another car behind them, and they would just be like on top. And it
Oh
was
my
all
god.
like super consensual. There's nobody was screwing around like,
Yeah.
but like Miles would tap on the car like a little faster,
Holy
little
shit.
fast, slow down. But we were like, it was, and I remember being like, yeah, this makes sense. And then reflecting on it later, it's like, oh my God, what were we doing?
Yeah, well, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy,
So,
man.
I mean, I don't have the best answer. You know what I'm going to have, Todd? As soon as you and I hang up with each other, I'm going to be like, oh man, there was those
Yeah, yeah,
7 near-death experiences I forgot about. But
yeah.
yeah, really, it's just like
Stupid
it's
shit.
just a trail of near-death experiences that you don't think about until later.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, last one for you. So from Laugh Out Loud and of course through the just for laughs, and you're out touring with Rick Mercer and Breakaway and Goon, and dude, you've done some really cool shit, right? Can you pick one career highlight, or is that just like impossible?
It's very, very difficult, but it's hard to think of too much that I enjoyed more than the tour with Rick Mercer. I just enjoyed his company, his storytelling, like live and I've been a fan of Rick's for many years, and then just to have him beside me,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
going like, "Oh, that's where Peter McKay did this, and that's where this person did that. That's where," and he just has this. It's just like this. It's the most entertaining tour of Canada you'll ever get. And Rick likes to chat. He's not a comedian who kind of shrinks. And
mm-hmm.
he's a Newfoundlander. He's a storyteller. Plus, he's incredibly intelligent. And he and I would like to, we would enjoy day drinking, and we enjoyed good food. And I gained about 12 pounds in 30 days.
Nice.
There was no way around it. And there was times where my wife would be like, she would call, and I'd be like, can I call you back? And she's like, I haven't spoken to you in 3 days. I'm like, I know, but Rick's in the middle of a story about something that happened in Kingston at the penitentiary. But I gotta, and she'd be like, what the? And I had to tell my wife, I'm like, I didn't realize it at the time, but this is this is like an honor and a privilege to be in Rick's company going across. I think we did like 23 cities, and
Oh wow.
you know, the eating and the bars and the restaurants and the laughs outside of the shows. I mean, just unbeatable time. And the group we were with was really great. You know, they yeah. But I was front seat to one of the one of the great Canadian, you know, I mean, comedic storytellers, and I had a front row every night. Not to say that Rick and I didn't chat and have a dialogue, but sometimes when he'd start talking about something, I'd just be like, I'm gonna just soak this all in and listen to some wonderful stories. So that was great because it was so long. It was sustained, you know, it was over a month's time. And yeah, that was unbeatable. I think that's a career highlight.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's very cool. Like, because Rick Mercer has got to be one of the funniest Canadians like ever, man.
He's effortlessly funny,
He is, yeah.
incredibly knowledgeable. His mind is a steel trap. He remembers every conversation he had with everybody. He remembers all kinds of things, and you know, yeah. And yeah, this is wonderful,
Yeah.
absolutely wonderful.
Does this taste funny? It's the Anvil Theater, New Westminster, April 19th. Tickets are available right now. Go see a funny guy. Ali, thank you, man, for taking some time and jumping on the podcast with us. Your stand up Ali on Twitter and Instagram, easy to find. And I guess we'll see you online. We'll see you at the show.
We'll see you at the show. I'm very excited to see you, brother. I'm also going to be in your old neck of the woods. Not quite Penticton, but Oliver and Lake Country. Do you need me to apologize to anybody for anything you did
Not to
as a young
anybody that I
man?
can think of, but as soon as we're done this, there'll be 7 names that I'll
message me privately. I'll see what I can do. Thanks so much, Todd. Great talking
Take care.
to you.
Thank you. Cheers.